a shadow of tension and danger looms over the Baltic region.
Do you realize how close we are to an unprecedented conflict? This is no longer just military build-up. It's a labyrinth of deadly traps, hidden beneath the surface, ready to ignite at a moment's notice.
Imagine bridges meant for crossing now rigged with explosive cables, designed not for passage but for destruction. Fields transformed into landscapes of engineered death, with anti-tank ditches and concrete defenses known as dragon's teeth, all carefully positioned to trap and neutralize any advancing force.
The border landscape has changed forever. The once diplomatic boundary gates now resemble zones of no-return, areas poised to explode if touched. From the Arctic to Poland's plains, a new Iron Curtain has taken shape.
It's not just a barrier of concrete, but a complex web of deadly traps.
Estonian defenses seal off the Narva crossing with reinforced barbed wire and concrete barriers.
A strategic move, turning a symbol of friendship into a controlled fortress.
Latvia has gone even further. Over 280 kilometers of high-tech fencing now crisscross their border with Russia, each segment embedded with sensors and surveillance systems. Additional barriers stretch 145 kilometers along Belarus, turning simple checkpoints into formidable security zones. These aren't just physical walls, they are intelligence systems, capable of detecting movement and triggering defenses instantly. Lithuania has pioneered the most aggressive defense measures. Bridges along the Belarus border are fitted with explosive engineering structures designed to detonate within seconds of enemy contact. This means that whenever Russian tanks or troops attempt an incursion, those vital crossings could become instant death traps. The blueprint for conflict is clear. The once visible threat is now concealed within technological marvels and deadly infrastructure. The borders are no longer lines of diplomacy, they are zones of strategic annihilation, meticulously prepared for total war. The question remains, are we prepared for what lies beneath these engineered defenses? Recent developments reveal a relentless push to turn borders into invincible fortresses. Poland has encircled the Kaliningrad region with an array of electronic barriers and trench systems, effectively cutting off Russia's Baltic enclave from the rest of Europe. This isn't mere border defense, it's a calculated strategy to prepare for a full-scale confrontation. Deep within this plan lies a frightening reality: explosive bridge structures on the Lithuanian border are more than just crossings. According to military sources, these bridges contain specially designed beds capable of quickly mounting and detonating explosives. This tactic, known as counter-mobility, aims not just to eliminate the bridge but to trap enemy tanks along the riverbank. Once immobilized, these armored units are funneled into kill zones, surrounded by artillery and HIMARS firepower waiting for their targets. Beyond the river, Lithuanian engineers are transforming irrigation canals into natural anti-tank traps. These waterways are reinforced to block T-72 and T-90 tanks from crossing, cutting off the enemy's mobility. Forestation is thickening in key areas, blinding observation and making enemy surveillance nearly impossible. The sound of rustling leaves and the smell of damp earth linger in the air, as natural defense becomes part of a larger battlefield strategy. Meanwhile, Latvia has erected a formidable 280-kilometer barrier, designed not only for border security but as a shield against infiltration. The wall includes a network of floating walkways in marshy regions, allowing border patrols to access even the most difficult terrains. Inside this complex system, covert storage parks, called anti-mobility parks, hold thousands of concrete blocks, mines, and barriers. This is a preemptive measure. As soon as enemy forces advance, these materials can be rapidly deployed to destroy roads and critical infrastructure, sealing off regions within hours. The true purpose emerges when we look beyond physical defenses. These preparations outline a clear doctrine: prepare for a total war. The goal isn't just security but eliminating any chance for enemy movement. Bridges become explosive traps, silent killers, fences transform into electronic fortresses, natural waterways evolve into impassable barriers. Is this truly a defensive stance or an ominous prelude to an all-out conflict? The countdown has begun. Every structure, every device, signals a nation ready to strike back at the first sign of invasion. The most advanced border security system on the European Union's eastern edge stretches from the Arctic to Poland. Floating walkways meander through marshy regions, allowing patrols in every difficult corner. But the true game-changer is the secret storage sites, anti-mobility parks, filled with thousands of concrete blocks and mines. When needed, roads can be destroyed within hours, turning highways into no-entry zones.
Finland's rapid fortification exemplifies the seriousness, with shelters capable of surviving direct missile strikes and a 260-kilometer barrier sealing off the southeast. This approach marks a shift, no more waiting behind lines. Now, the focus is stopping the advance dead in its tracks at the border itself. In the northeastern city of Narva, Estonia, the most vulnerable point lies in the Narva River crossing. Barricaded with steel gates and dragon's teeth, concrete obstacles meant to halt anything crossing, this area is marked as a potential front line in NATO drills. The Estonian government is racing to build 600 concrete shelters, forming a formidable physical wall against possible hybrid attacks by Russian forces disguised as civilians.
Provocations, Russian border incursions, removal of navigational buoys ignite tensions, pushing the boundaries ever closer. The border's gray zone has vanished. Now, it's a clear divide, either unified with us or against us. Powerful, secret structures buried beneath the surface are ready to be triggered, bridges rigged to explode, rivers lined with mines, designed to trap and slow any invading forces. This unseen battlefield is evolving into a maze of destruction, meticulously prepared for an all-out confrontation.
The sound of heavy machinery, the smell of fresh concrete mixed with anticipation, echoes through the tense air.
As patrols sharpen their focus, one question remains: are these defenses enough to stop an unstoppable force? Or will the first strike break through, transforming hope into chaos?
Every inch of this border is a chessboard, each move calculated, each trap laid for the advancing enemy. From the Baltic shores to the frozen forests, the entire region has embraced a doctrine of forward defense, an uncompromising stance designed to crush any threat before it begins.
Behind these barriers, a new age of warfare is taking shape, silent, deadly, and unyielding. And as the world watches, the most startling question looms: can these steel walls and minefields truly hold the tide of an unstoppable invasion, or will the first breach unleash a nightmare scenario? Can Russia really humiliate the Baltic states into submission with a single brutal incursion, erasing their defiant walls like sandcastles in a storm?
Shocking fact, Poland's electronic barrier now seals Kaliningrad, making Russia's Baltic fleet a ghost of its former self, monitored round the clock by silent sensors that detect even a whisper of movement. Imagine the cold, unyielding hum of cameras piercing the fog, the ground trembling faintly under seismic alerts, all part of a tech fortress reacting not to humans, but to shadows of war machines. This 199-kilometer line isn't just a wall, it's a digital sentinel, neutralizing Moscow's sneaky migrant tactics with ruthless precision, turning hybrid threats into harmless echoes. From the salty Baltic Sea spray southward to the Belarusian fields, this iron chain unites defiance, leaving Russia and Belarus gawking at not inviting portals, but cannons aimed straight at their hearts and detonators rigged to obliterate passage in an instant. They've glimpsed freedom slipping away, bridges poised to shatter like fragile glass under pressure. We've explored how the Baltics, from Finland's stout shelters to Poland's trenches, fortify against Russia and Belarus with concrete fangs and electronic ghosts. Now, brace for the human toll. This isn't just maps redrawn, but lives unraveled in frontier towns. Feel the sharp sting of isolation as bustling streets turn desolate, the acrid scent of abandoned markets clinging to the air, friends' laughs fading into uneasy silence. Narva, once a vibrant heartbeat of exchange, echoes empty now. Its friendship bridge a sealed wound symbolizing shattered bonds. Bloomberg dissects this fracture. The city's core identity crumbles, residents who prided themselves as Europe's edge now huddle in psychological exile, economies gasping without the cross-border pulse of tourism and trade. Lost forever? Decades of interwoven threads vanish overnight, like dreams dissolving in dawnlight. Even Russians in these pockets, fingers calloused from daily routines, face the Putin's war echo-blocking roads entirely. The bridge stays shut against looming hybrid perils. Picture the jolt, Alexin and Narva deprived of their lifeline, logistics grinding to a halt, wallets emptying amid the chilled air of uncertainty. What if Russia's provocations, those brazen border guard dashes and buoy thefts along Narva's rippling waters, have ignited not just alarms in Tallinn, but a seismic divide eroding trust? Alarms blare shrill in the pre-dawn mist, hearts pounding as buoys vanish into the current, leaving a stark message: no gray areas remain. You're with us or a pawn in their game, the little green phantoms lurking unseen. Twist, But here's the unforeseen betrayal: these defenses, meant to shield, now isolate innocents, forcing Baltics to arm civilians with drills, sirens wailing like banshee cries, 72-hour kits thrust into homes trembling with uncertainty. Lithuania floods doorsteps with 150,000 manuals, crisp pages rustling in nervous hands, training for an invasion that claws at every doorstep. Russia's disinformation machine targets it all, slithering through veins via online whispers. Sowing doubt in Russian-speaking enclaves like Daugavpils, where skepticism festers like a festering wound. Governments wage a dual battle: exterior walls against tanks, interior campaigns to reclaim minds poisoned by Kremlin lies. Vilnius drills stir panic, proximity to Belarus, a 30-kilometer sword over the capital, simulations exposing choke points and escape routes, buses idling, elderly clutched on seats, as masses flee west, clogging vital corridors. What happens when civilian waves disrupt NATO's lifeline, leaving allies stalled? A startling revelation: sheltering in place becomes the only sanctuary, self-reliance a quiet revolution against chaos. The Baltics, adapting fast, carve paths through peril, their plans a shield forged in unimaginable foresight. Yet, echoes of this fortified nightmare ripple outward, transforming societies into echoes of fortified dread. Will Moscow's shadow consume them next? Recent developments have drastically changed life for border regions like Narva and Alexei. These areas once thrived on border trade, tourism, and logistics. But now, everything has been shattered. The once lively streets are eerily quiet. The familiar sounds of daily commerce are replaced by tense silence. Roads are blocked, bustling markets vanished. The risk of hybrid attacks from Russia continues to grow, prompting the Baltics to act swiftly. Faced with escalating threats, Baltic nations are taking unprecedented steps. Governments are running constant drills, sirens wail through the night as citizens practice rapid shelters. Survival kits are handed out, enough to last 3 days. In Lithuania, over 150,000 civil defense manuals are delivered door to door. They prepare for the worst, knowing that Russian disinformation and propaganda are targeted even within their own borders. Particularly vulnerable are Russian-speaking minorities in border towns. In places like Daugavpils, many still rely on Russian media. They are skeptical of their own government's efforts. Propaganda waves flood social media, TikTok, Telegram, aimed at turning public opinion against their nations. It's a psychological battlefield as well as a physical one. The threat isn't just from outside but also from internal doubt. The governments face a daunting challenge: how to win hearts and minds in a divided society. They are building concrete barriers and reinforced walls outside, yet inside, they fight misinformation, arguably a more insidious foe. In Vilnius, emergency evacuation drills are in full swing. The proximity to Belarus, only 30 kilometers away, is a constant worry. If conflict erupts, the capital could be targeted by artillery. Simulations reveal a grim reality: only 3 main routes exist for mass evacuation. Over hundreds of thousands of civilians, vulnerable populations like the elderly, disabled, or those with limited mobility, must be moved quickly. Plans are underway to transport these groups westward by bus. But developing a seamless evacuation process remains a challenge. Authorities are racing against time, crafting complex plans to avoid chaos. Every second counts in this fragile new landscape. This evolving situation is not merely about military preparedness but also about survival in a context of uncertainty. The borders are becoming no longer just lines on a map but active zones of defense, disinformation, and psychological warfare. It's a high-stakes game where the smallest breach could trigger a cascade of events, forever altering lives and the future of the region. A sudden, silent exodus toward the Suwałki corridor could threaten vital supply routes and delay NATO support. Civilians are now urged to stay put, become self-reliant, and prepare for the worst. The Baltic nations have recently overhauled their plans, considering every possible scenario to contain the chaos. Imagine thousands of civilians trying to escape, but the roads behind them are already sealed. Military transport, emergency supplies, everything could ground to a halt within moments. The ripple effect would devastate Russia and Belarus entirely. If borders close abruptly, Russia's last direct link to Europe would vanish. Trains and trucks destined for Kaliningrad could be stopped in an instant,
transforming Moscow's strategic enclave into a lonely, isolated island.
Meanwhile, Belarus morphs into a heavily fortified fortress, hosting Russian troops and munitions. Its economy hangs heavily on Kremlin aid, while its freedom to act diminishes with each new barrier. The once lively border zones are now eerily quiet, only watchtower beams and the cold shimmer of thermal cameras cut through the darkness. The fortress-like walls the Baltic states raise are shifting the entire balance of power. This aggressive defensive stance marks a seismic shift in NATO's approach. The long-standing strategy, deterrence by punishment, has been replaced by deterrence by denial. It's no longer about waiting for an invasion, then responding, it's about making invasion impossible from the start. Lithuania's decision to destroy bridges, a brutal, clear message, screams, come in, but never leave alive. This new doctrine threatens to undo Putin's surprise attack tactics completely. The Baltic defenses are designed to crush any quick victory, turning the front lines into an almost impenetrable barrier. What's the real cost of this relentless push to block Russia at every turn? Can the West hold these new borders for good? Or will unseen cracks still appear in the fortress walls? Every steel barrier, every mine trap, every sensor is another step toward a future where conflict isn't fought with tanks or missiles, but with formidable, unbreakable barriers. Behind these walls, the entire scenario shifts, the risk for Russia escalates into a game of staggering stakes and terrifying pauses. The question now, will this new strategy be enough to keep aggression at bay, or are we just witnessing the beginning of an even greater confrontation? Moscow's aggressive rhetoric and recent military buildup reveal a startling truth: the Baltic region is transforming into an impregnable fortress. This strategic transformation turns Russia's backyard into a deadly trap, thwarting any hopes of a quick invasion. Finland and Sweden's military presence, combined with NATO's dominance of the Baltic Sea, threaten Russia's military lifelines, especially the ports of St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad. Now, the land borders of the Baltic nations could be the final key to encircling Russia's maritime stronghold. Kaliningrad, once a symbol of Russian dominance, now appears isolated within a sea of NATO territory. Its logistical lines hang by a thread, vulnerable to sudden disruption. Poland's electronic barriers and Lithuania's fortified attempts around the Suwalki corridor are quietly dismantling Russia's strategic options, turning what once seemed invulnerable into a brittle shell. Moscow's main threat, its Iskander missile cards, face an emerging wall of air defense systems and fortified barriers. As Russian officials voice caution, claiming attacks on NATO are unlikely, their long-term plans remain active. But the Baltic defense line has shifted the chessboard, forcing Moscow's calculations into a dangerous corner. Their hopes of a surprise assault are fading, replaced by the realization that their traditional avenues of aggression are now heavily guarded. Meanwhile, Russia and Belarus are pouring resources into migrant crises and unrest, trying to divert attention. Yet, they now face an unyielding reality: concrete barriers and prepared armies. This strategic standstill embodies a new dawn, Europe's wake-up call. Countries once accused of paranoia now stand firm, dedicated to defending every inch of NATO territory. The message is clear: any threat to an ally becomes a threat to the entire alliance. What was once considered unbreakable is now painfully vulnerable. The Baltic states' walls are not just physical, they are symbolic of Europe's resolve. And as the world watches, the question remains: can Russia's desperation push it to reckless extremes? Or will these barriers hold, forever changing the balance of power in the region? Recap from the last part: in the prior chapter, we uncovered Europe's collective awakening. For years, Baltic leaders were labeled paranoid for sounding alarms about Russian aggression. Now, their foresight fuels NATO's ironclad defense doctrine. Any threat to an ally means the entire alliance locks shields, defending every inch of territorial soil. Imagine the shocking twist: could these fortified walls along the Baltic chokehold finally crumble Putin's divide-and-conquer playbook, or does it tempt him into a catastrophic gamble that redraws the global map? Feel the icy winds howling through barbed wire, the earth trembling under concrete fangs. Germany's steadfast battalion parked in Lithuania, blending with American soldiers' footprints. This isn't just a Baltic barricade, it's a transatlantic fortress, a shield forged from ocean to plain. Putin aimed to fracture NATO, splintering unity like fragile glass. Instead, his shadow has welded the pact into a pinnacle of militarized resolve, sharper than ever. Each barbed strand, every gouged trench, hammers another spike into the heart of Kremlin ambitions, echoing with the metallic clang of defeat. For Belarus, Russia's embattled crony, disaster looms like a suffocating fog. Lithuania and Poland's slammed shutters squeeze Lukashenko's regime in an economic stranglehold. Trade veins severed, doors to Europe barred, Minsk clings harder to Moscow, teetering on the brink of total meltdown. Picture the vice tightening, finances bleeding dry, homes echoing with hollow murmurs of scarcity. Rhetoric question, will this choke Belarus into submission? Or ignite a desperate uprising? These defenses don't merely halt Russian armor, they flip the power scales, trapping invaders in a web of denied freedoms. No more wild roams through sylvan shadows for Moscow or Minsk, the cage is sealed, keys melted away. Borders? Mere sketches on paper once, now, towering bastions of stone, iron, and buried fury, their surfaces cold and unyielding to the touch. Dig deep, the Baltic nations, etching their soil with trenches, proclaim to the world that true peace demands wartime vigilance. Those rigged under bridges? Engineering feats pulsing with lethal potential, sensory whispers of circuits humming in the silence. They aren't signals, they're searing diplomatic missives to Moscow. This terrain isn't your dominion. Cross it, and meet obliteration. The mirage of calm shatters into an armed crucible, harsh and vigilant. The Iron Veil descends anew, not the Kremlin's legacy, but Baltic resolve, forged in flames of liberty. They stand ready to incinerate all for sovereignty. Any aggressor slamming into this bulwark confronts not just reinforced slabs, but an unyielding coalition spirit. Slick humidity clings to gears, distant artillery roars rumble like thunder. What unforeseen fracture could fracture this monolithic wall next? Could these aggressive defenses intimidate Vladimir Putin, or will Russia and Belarus push forward with risky, provocative actions? The outcome remains uncertain. Are we witnessing a new era of resilience, or is danger lurking just beneath the surface? Share your thoughts below. Thank you for engaging with this story.